would be a beautiful picture if it wasn't a representation of Candida aureus. Candida aureus is a fungus that is resistant to the 3 classes of antifungal drugs. If you become infected with Candida aureus, you have a 50% chance of dying within 90 days. What's worse is an infected patient will spread the fungus to every surface of their room, where it will persist and easily moves from room to room and patient to patient. It's one of the many challenges we're going to face in the looming health crisis of the 21st century, which is drug-resistant pathogens. By 2050, more people will die of infections than cancer. And the more we know about these pathogens, the more challenging it appears. We now know they form biofilms. So biofilm is like a structure that a pathogen surrounds itself in to protect itself from our cleaners and sanitizers. The biofilm can start with a single organism and grow to house as many as 2 million in 7 hours. They're very difficult to get rid of. They form in hospitals. They form in food processing plants, where they contribute to what Fortune magazine has called our $55 billion food safety problem. Now, I don't want to depress you too much, because there is hope. Hope in the form of an element called chlorine. And we all know about chlorine. We've been using it for 100 years in our drinking water, in our pools, in our cleaners, sanitizers, and laundry. And over that whole time, no organisms have grown resistant to chlorine. The only drawback of chlorine is that it decays rapidly in the environment. So if you spray on a chlorinated sanitizer or cleaner, the chlorine will be gone within an hour, in the same way that you can smell an indoor pool because the chlorine is no longer in the water, but it's in the air. Now, researchers at Auburn University discovered a way to hold chlorine or stabilize it in a molecule called Halomine, which is where we got our name. Now, Halomine will fix chlorine until a pathogen comes along and then discharge it, killing the pathogen. Now, our CTO and founder, Dr. Chow, got his PhD at Auburn University and learned about Halomine. He brought that knowledge and understanding to Cornell when he did his postdoc at Professor Ma's lab. So I want you to think about Auburn University as Ben Franklin, who's credited with discovering electricity, in which case Cornell is Thomas Edison, who 100 years later invented all manners of things to make electricity relevant to our lives. Now, it took about 2 years for Dr. Chow and Professor Ma to come up with as many as 5 different chemistries to make Halomine relevant to our lives and our future. The first product is called halofilm. So you spray halofilm onto a surface, you let it dry, it leaves a transparent, thin film, and that film can last for as long as 3 months. And the film makes the surface act like a chlorine battery. So when you subsequently use a chlorinated sanitizer or cleaner, the chlorine will charge the film and charge the surface and stay there until a pathogen comes along and it'll discharge, killing it. And then you can recharge or replace the chlorine with another application of chlorinated sanitizer. So whereas before, you had about an hour's worth of protection on a surface using a cleaner or sanitizer, and then a long period of no protection that gave biofilms a chance to take hold and grow. Now, if you apply halofilm beforehand, you have continuous protection with a chlorinated surface, making it very difficult for biofilms to form and making it very difficult for pathogens like Candida aureus. So halofilm can make any surface into an antimicrobial surface. And the antimicrobial surface market is about $4.5 billion. We have funding from the USDA to pursue applications in food safety, and we've applied to the NIH for funding to pursue applications in hospital settings. Now, we already have money from the Army to incorporate Halomine into the next generation of wound care dressing. The advanced wound care dressing market is about $10.5 billion. We're also looking at coating medical devices to have an impact on things like catheter-associated urinary tract infections that cost the healthcare system about $1 billion a year. So I want to leave you with one last thought. If Cornell is Thomas Edison, who took a number of his inventions and founded General Electric, then Halomine is the General Electric of our antimicrobial future. I'm out of time.
How ready are you to launch your first product into the market?
So before I answered that, actually, I was asked to put up this slide, which says all of the different ways that we've worked with Cornell to get this product going. So how are we actually going to launch it into the market? We have a couple things that we need to do. We need to get some EPA approval for a low volume exemption to manufacture what is the active ingredient in halofilm. After that, it's pretty easy because you're basically adding, some magic foo-foo dust into alcohol and water, and then you can spray it on. And so we just need to have a plant so that we can mix these things together and put them into containers. Now, we're looking at about 3,000 food processing plants with 100 people or more to do a direct sales force. We would also pursue hospitals with a direct sales force initially, but we're also talking to some very large players who are interested in those markets that could do some co-marketing with us. It's very likely to end up in a consumer realm, even to avoid things like mold in Florida or some other places, but it's unlikely that we will end up doing it, taking it that far. So we're looking to get a toehold, get some sales out there, and then find some marketing partners.
Along the same lines, I actually work for a company that manufactures temporary reusable containment walls for renovation projects.
Okay.
Huge market, and I know how big of an opportunity you're going after. So I love the idea. My question for you is, how do you break through the noise? There are a lot of cleaning products out there. They're used on our walls all day long, and how are you thinking you're going to differentiate yourself?
So it's easy to talk about hospitals and food processors and things as big markets. I think the way we'll probably end up going is we'll get the product so that you can order it, a trial kit or something, maybe a halofilm bottle and a chlorinated sanitizer bottle. I think I left this slide in. There's actually a test kit, so you can test chlorine on the surface. And so we'll put all that together and send it and make it available to people. What I expect is we'll find some uses that we didn't think about. Maybe a microbiology lab, who knows what we'll find. But those people will be early converts. It'll satisfy a hot need for them, and we might generate $1 million or $2 million in sales. And when we find those, where we're watching our sales, we'll focus on those for a while until we saturate that market. And then once we have a base, then it's easier to go after things like hospitals that are big, decision-making entities that buy in large quantities or not. It's a lot easier to sell smaller quantities to niche markets. And I think they're out there. We have a few in mind, but I think we'll find more.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about your team and who you plan to hire next?
So I didn't have the team slide in because usually just read it off. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had 30 years of working in startup companies. I got my MBA from the Johnson School in 1990, so I'm like the oldest person here. So I've been involved in a lot of different companies that have done a lot of different things. So this is a fairly complicated company because you have this spray-on product and you have medical devices, and I have a little bit in both worlds. Now, I'm also helped by a gentleman named Greg Birch, who has experience in the entrepreneurial space of antimicrobials, and he's sort of leading up the wound care side. And then Dr. Chow is able to do all of the chemistry and all of the science. And so that's good enough for the moment as we move forward with the development of these products. And then probably the medical devices and the other things will split apart. And then we'll form sort of full teams for them that match what venture capitalists are looking for and what other investors are looking for as well. So we have a great board of advisors that includes a variety of different people. I won't sort of list them now, but yes, we are going to continually beef up, and then we might even beef up in the next 4 years for 2 full companies.
So I think that might lead into my
my question is, when you talk about the uses and, spraying a surface area versus using it on a medical gauze or a catheter, so within someone's body, the different uses, could I assume you probably have to build out, maybe it's not the technology, but something in order to make it sterile or not harmful for a human?
Sure.
And I was really going to ask, how far are you with that? Are there different parts of the company that's going to plan to build them out for the different purposes?
So I don't have the biosafety compatibility data and all those other things. In the antimicrobial space, there's one other thing that people use really, and it's silver ions. And silver is not terribly effective. It doesn't work on dry surfaces, and it has less biocompatibility than we do. So we have all that information. I think what happens, the applications drive the regulation to some extent.
Right.
And so each application is going to be entirely different. There is really nothing that is the same. Once we do this, we can do that. What is the same right now is the same formulation for halofilm you can dip a gauze into and take it out, and it's now an antimicrobial bandage. So the chemistry is all the same at the moment, or at least the technologies we can mix and match. But we'll really need to form, we could easily form as many as 5 different companies at some point, or spin-outs, that would each focus on their own applications. I think that answers your question,
Yes.
but I'm not sure. Yeah.
If you have a bottle of spray, I have 2 children at home under the age of 5, I could just hose them down.
Ming-Yu, Dr. Chow has one with him in case you want to spray it around. It's totally safe, you can drink it, but I wouldn't advise that.
Great, thanks so much.